So the CMAs took place this past week, and just like every year, I don't really know what to think. I've always sort of avoided the conversation of award shows because I feel like most of everything has already been said about them. Furthermore, I've also just never had that bold of a take regarding them. While I despise certain aspects, which I will get to eventually, I'm not one of those people who's going to be cursing out the existence of mainstream media within country music and then go to bed all cozy in my Sturgill Simpson bedspread. But I also ain't going to look at the CMAs and think, oh, what a fun night celebrating the best country music. I think it's more my lack of stance that is my stance on the CMA Awards. I do not care about them whatsoever. I think where I struggle is I want to like the CMA Awards. I want them to be interesting. I want to have that one night every year where the best country music is being celebrated and I get to watch the best artists at that present moment be rewarded for their accomplishments. I want to be glued to my seat anxiously waiting as they open that envelope to see if the artist I was rooting for won the award I think they deserved. That idea sounds like something worth watching, worth waiting all year to see. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We have the CMA Awards. But like I said, I'm not a passionate, dedicated hater of the CMA Awards. I'm just passionately passive and unbothered by their existence. My strongest emotion towards the show is simply feeling underwhelmed. So today, instead of making some dramatic think piece on what has to change to make the CMAs better, or some emotional piece on the state of mainstream country music, today's video is simply everything wrong with the CMA Awards this year. Exactly what the title said is exactly what you're gonna get. We gotta be trolling, right? We gotta be trolling. Like at this point, the only reason this could possibly make sense is if the Country Music Association themselves is admitting the CMAs aren't worth a gosh darn thing, so they figured, we might as well have some fun and just like troll Midland, right? Serious question right here, and I don't mean this as any disrespect to any of the parties involved, but when's the last time you asked someone what their favorite country band was and they said Old Dominion? Old Dominion is my favorite country band is a set of words that have never been arranged and uttered from one's mouth in that order by any human being ever. Like, where is Old Dominion's fan base? I haven't heard from them in a spicy, hot and ready minute. But if y'all do exist, if you are an actual dedicated Old Dominion fan, again, no disrespect, I want to hear from you. Please let me know in the comments. Tell me Old Dominion is your favorite country band. I want to be proven wrong. If I know their fan base actually exists, it'll make it a lot easier to accept the fact that these tiki bartender looking dudes have curb stomped Midland in the face for the last century. Now I know a bunch of you regular viewers are going to try and be goofy and comment Old Dominion is your favorite band, but I know who you are. And I know you're lying. I've had these conversations with you guys. I'm looking for a fresh face to enter the comment section and unironically, legitimately say, Old Dominion is my favorite country band. Better than Midland, Zac Brown Band, Flatland Cavalry, better than Whiskey Myers, better than the Randy Rogers Band. Those are only a handful of current thriving bands. I just want someone to tell me that they are undoubtedly, no hesitation, taking Old Dominion over everybody. I already know some of you gasped at that, like, oh, he's gonna diss Brooks and Dunn? I'm not dissing Brooks and Dunn or saying they aren't a fantastic duo. I'm just saying if Wayne Gretzky got nominated for Most Valuable Player in 2022, people would be like, what's going on? I got thinking, how on earth did Brooks and Dunn get nominated? Granted, it's not like they haven't been together since their first breakup in 2009, but what have they done other than their reboot album in 2019? I guess they're going on a tour? So I googled the criteria for Vocal Duo of the Year, and according to the CMAs on their official website, quote, this award is based on the musical performance of the duo as a unit on a country single or album release as well as their overall contribution to country music. With that information, I then go back onto their artist page on Apple, where it's been so long they no longer have a newest release being advertised on their artist page. The last time Brooks and Dunn put out music was April 5th, 2019 with their reboot album. I know Ronnie Dunn did a cover album in 2020 and then he actually put out his it's about neon and beer. Oh my gosh. Ronnie Dunn put out an album this year, but that's not Brooks and Dunn the duo. Like, I know they featured on a song here or there, but they themselves as a duo haven't been doing a whole lot. Again, this is no diss to Brooks and Dunn. Their legacy is absolutely cemented. But Were they really one of the top 5 country music duos this year based on the criteria listed by the CMAs? I don't think so. Back in 2019, absolutely. They dropped a really dope album with new versions of their classic hit songs, with new up-and-coming current artists. They were right back on the charts, as relevant as ever, and as in tune with the current country landscape as ever. That's when they deserve to be nominated. But 3 years later, when nothing has happened since, they're still getting nominated? And that's just one example of arguably my biggest issue with the CMA Awards, especially this year. It's become so stale because it's the same gosh darn names getting nominated and winning all of the same awards. The CMA bubble, the pool of artists they have to choose from, has become so small over the years that the nominees just feel more stale than ever before. At this point, they're actively refusing to include new names. The CMAs have become this elitist club that takes a lifetime to get into, but once you're in, you're in. No matter what you do, you're pretty much guaranteed at least a few nominations and probably an award every single year, even if you've met absolutely none of the criteria. It's like you're a Senate in the Canadian government. I mean, if your goal is to become a member of the Senate, good luck. But if you ever wind up there, your life is set. You can recline your seat, kick your feet up, and enjoy that beefy pension. I just don't understand why the CMAs choose to do this. Surely the more artists they include, the more fan bases they're going to attract. But even for people who are going to watch the CMA Awards regardless, wouldn't it be way more entertaining if the nominees were a group of current artists that have actively been meeting and surpassing the criteria outlined for each award? I'm not trying to give them advice based on what I think would work from an entertainment standpoint. I'm saying what I think makes obvious sense from a competitive standpoint. But in turn, I think that's what makes the whole thing entertaining. It's an award show. The reason the CMAs have become so stale and boring is because it's no longer competitive. There's no standard for anything anymore. And trust me, I'm going to go off way more on this idea in a minute. But for now, Time, Tequila, and Therapy was nominated for Album of the Year, alright? I'm gonna be honest, this category wasn't complete and utter buns. You got Growing Up as the winner. I think it's good. I don't think it really does anything any Luke Combs album hasn't already done better, but it's fine. Humble Quest by Karen Morris, a surprisingly interesting record with some really clever atmospheric production. I like this one. That pick is fine to me, especially since I do have to look at this through the most mainstream lens that I can. Palomino, Miranda Lambert, great record. I've been enjoying this Marfa Tapes Palomino tumbleweed vibe Miranda's been on lately. Great album, great pick. Saying what I'm thinking, I wasn't as big on it as a lot of you guys were, but it was the album that shot Lainey to where she is today as one of the thriving young artists in country music, so I can see that. Time, Tequila, and Therapy? Nah. I think my main problem with a lot of these nominees is simply that they're old. But I didn't know the submission period. I wasn't even sure when the window was open and for how long. So I asked my good buddy Cyrus, what even is the submission period for stuff in the CMAs? To which he responded July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. If anyone thinks that is wrong, let me know. But if anyone knows the nooks and crannies of this award show corporate stuff, it's Cyrus, so I'm going to take his word for it. But even if he's a day or two off, my number 4 point is, how on earth did You Should Probably Leave wind up in the Song of the Year category? I like that song. Initially, it was one of my favorites from Chris Stapleton's Starting Over album, but I also know it was released in November of 2020, yet here we are in November of 2022, and it's still being nominated. Even Sand in My Boots. Let's not act like January is the new July. That bad boy is a good 6 or 7 months late. And when you're talking about an annual, yearly ceremony, yeah, being a little over half a year late is pretty late. Now, to give the CMA Awards every possible benefit of the doubt, maybe the submission period doesn't mean it had to be released in that time frame. However, the schedule is just ridiculous, because obviously it met this wonky warp criteria. So let's change the criteria, because as a viewer, it's mighty confusing to be sitting here just a couple weeks out from 2023, seeing a song from 2020 being nominated for an award in 2022. That makes no sense. Speaking of things being too old, it's time to move on to my 5th and final and biggest beef with the CMA Awards this year, and that is the entirety of the New Artist of the Year category. Now you might be asking, Evan, what is so wrong with this category? The problem is that none of the artists being nominated for New Artist of the Year are new! Lainey Wilson is the only person on this list who has a fair enough case for New Artist of the Year. All these other guys are not new. I'm not saying in order to be nominated for New Artist of the Year, your music career should begin the same year you're being nominated, but I look at guys like Cody Johnson, and before I continue, I should make it clear, none of this is Cody Johnson's fault. I am a big Cody Johnson fan, and I've been very vocal about that on the channel before. All you have to do is watch any of my positive year recap videos to find out. But this man's first album was in 2011. We're talking over a decade. This guy's been grinding in the game, but not silently. He's been selling out stadiums for rodeos long before the CMAs ever came along and claimed him as their new podium child. But what's worse, he was nominated for New Artist of the Year in 2019. So 3 years ago, 8 years after he got going, the CMA Awards said, yeah, nominate him for New Artist of the Year. But at least to their defense, Cody was new to them. He was new to Nashville. He had done his thing in Texas a while, but then eventually signed on to a big label in Nashville in 2019. So he was new to the CMA Elite Club. But now 3 years after that, he's being nominated for New Artist of the Year again? How can you be a new artist twice? You're only new once. I'm not trying to be stingy or picky, but surely you should only be eligible for New Artist of the Year 1 year, because then you're not new. Even if you're gonna ignore the success a lot of these artists have received before being recognized by the CMA Awards, let's at least remember when they were already recognized by the CMAs. The worst part is Cody isn't the only repeat nominee here. Hardy, he was nominated for New Artist of the Year last year too. What's up with that? But at least it's not as egregious as Cody Johnson, who was nominated back in 2019. Oh wait, I mean, he wasn't nominated as New Artist, but he was nominated at the CMAs back in 2019 too. So like, did they forget who he was and then hear like Mockingbird and the Crow and be like, hey yo, this kind of heat, this is a new guy, we haven't heard of him before. But even the artists like Walker Hayes and Parker McCollum, these just aren't overly new faces. Walker Hayes has been grinding for a minute, but it's not like he was doing it silently. I mean, yeah, he's never been bigger than he was this past year. That I understand that, but dude had a big radio hit, You Broke Up With Me, back in 2017. That was 5 years ago. Are they just acting like he hasn't been around making the odd hit or so for the last half decade? Parker McCollum, he was making big splashes in the Texas scene all the way back in 2015 with the Limestone Kid. But even then, when he transitioned to Nashville, his big introduction was Pretty Hard. That song was pushed in early 2020 to some decent success, you know, like #1 on the country airplay charts. Rookie numbers, really. Like, shouldn't that have been when he was eligible for New Artist of the Year? Or did they have to wait for more time to pass to see if it was good enough to be considered a new artist, even though by the time they decided, he's not really new anymore? I just don't understand this like 4-year buffer the CMA works on, where it feels like by the time they finally discover an album and nominate it for anything, it's already been out, and in fact the artist is probably like 3 albums further into their discography, and no one even remembers the album they're nominating. What I don't get is there's so many new artists popping up everywhere nowadays. At least when you're talking about awards for bands, they could pull a cop-out by saying, like, you know, how many country bands are there? But when you're talking about new artists, Bailey Zimmerman was at the CMA Awards. He was there. Unless they don't think he was good enough, from their point of view, you've got a new artist with a huge hit, a few huge hits under his belt, a massive following on social media, lots of hype behind him, lots of momentum with his career. This is your new artist. I'm not saying he's the best new artist, but I'm saying, what box is he not ticking? He was literally there on the red carpet. The only way his exclusion is justified is if he's nominated for New Artist next year, because again, submission period, whatever goes on behind closed doors, maybe he didn't make the cut this year. It makes no sense, but maybe he wasn't eligible. But if he is ever nominated for New Artist beyond next year, BS to the highest degree. I don't know. I'm not even going to touch on the fact that Zach Bryan was completely blacklisted. I mean, I knew it was going to happen, but we're talking about one of the most streamed artists on earth, all genres considered. They just act like he doesn't even exist. What I don't think the CMAs understand is that they're only hurting themselves by not keeping things fair and fresh. Before, when mainstream had a monopoly on the scene, they could get away with burying artists and denying their importance. That's how you wind up with people like Sturgill busking outside of the CMA Awards. But It's gotten to a point where now you're missing big opportunities by playing dumb. Zach Bryan was right when he tweeted in response saying he doesn't need CMA awards as validation of his success. He just has to go on Spotify and see how he's one of the most streamed musicians on the planet, or look to all of his sold out crowds from the tour he was just on. More than ever before, country music does not need the CMA awards. But that goes both ways. More than ever before, the CMA awards need country music.